this, and I'm sure that is, in fact, the right thing to do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, I think so. But yeah, well, it took me years.
Sometimes you can see the tangible things, like
Yeah.
when the city, passes a resolution. It's almost like a tangible thing that you can point out into and say, that there's something there that people put a lot of work into, and it was materialized into something.
But it's still people talking about
Right.
something
Yes.
that you can't touch. I don't know. Religion does it really well. They sell their product really well to people
Well,
without.
But
having,
their product is also intangible. You can't really
I
touch
know.
it either.
So maybe they're doing something right that we need to like.
Well, see, they've got millennia
Yeah.
of experience ahead of us.
That's true, and they're promising something bigger than what we are, I suppose. But yeah, no, the process that I've gone through in my life in trying to understand like why it matters to me has been interesting for me to think back on, because there were times, like I always knew I was different, but I never knew why. I never understood why. I kind of had ideas, but I never really understood it. So there were a lot of like snubs and rejections and things that I never had a context for. So I just took them as personally, like, oh, you don't like me. There's
Right.
something about me that you don't like. I didn't even really understand class that well. I was fairly poor growing up. And so knowing people with more money and being sort of excluded from their world, I didn't know why that was. I didn't even really know that, well, I'm shabby and I don't have nice new stuff and you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's a reason to like me less. So there were I took all of that personally throughout my life. So I think I developed a sense of what would you call it? Like a connection to the underdog or something.
Everyone
like
likes
that.
an underdog.
Yeah, but just some sense of like, oh, you've had it hard too. I'm on your side because I know what it's
You
like.
relate
to, have it
to
hard,
people
you know?
who are in situations of
Yeah.
hardship or difficulties, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and there were periods of my life where I wanted to be very white. I saw myself as being part of this long march of European history. I had no reason. I knew that wasn't my background, but I didn't ever make that connection. I thought that way. The books I read told me that.
Yeah.
I believed that stuff. So I just assumed, well, I'm part of this. And
But I think that's why it's important that we have, for example, in schools and education, the kids are taught
yes,
not only the dominant mainstream, in this case, European American history, but also the history of other peoples and other groups have also contributed to the American fabric.
yeah. And I think they're
And
doing more of that now.
yes.
They didn't do that when I was
No, I can imagine. Yes,
at all. History was European history, was Western history.
a whole bunch of white dudes. doing good
Philosophy
stuff.
was Western philosophy. Art was Western art. Music was Western. It was all like, this is the story of humanity. There are some other things that people were doing in other places, and they're interesting and sometimes very fascinating to look at, very, exotic. And
Yeah, they're seen
whatever.
through this exotic lens. Like, you just kind of
Yeah.
visit them and then just kind of, but they're foreign, even though
Therefore,
it's the story of a lot of people who have come here.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting process to tease that apart and to understand why some people really just don't see past that construct.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't white people have White History Month?
You don't have to. have
You've
one.
heard that. Well, because that course called History in School, that's white history.
Yes, exactly.
You've got it all year long. Why don't we have a white students' lounge? You've got a whole white university. It's like they just don't make that.
I have had this
leap.
conversation actually, and I guess withholding names so that I don't get in trouble.
Yeah, don't.
I had this conversation once with someone who said, "Well, I am from a British American, heritage,
Yeah.
and so why can we have a British American cultural house at DOI? Why do you have a an African American cultural house or an Asian American or a La Casa Latina?
Mm-hmm.
And my reply was like, well, because you belong to a group that's always been a dominant group, and your culture is represented everywhere you look, on TV, in ads, on the movies, in everyday life. Like in school, when you go to school, you learn about all these great things that the British American founders did.
Sure.
And so, I thought that was you bring that up, and that's people think that, and they think that there's a valid point, but they fail to see the fact that there are all these groups that have been oppressed and brutalized for so long, and their histories have been erased or try to be erased from the history of this country, or even of the entire continent, because it really goes all the way from Canada to the tip of South America. All these groups that have been their land was stolen, and then their histories were stolen too.
Yeah, and whenever I hear people say that, it doesn't make me so much angry as just kind of sad, because it's like, okay, I can see that there's this whole thing. It's the old forest, you can't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. It's like, it's so big, you can't see it because it's too big. So how do I get you from where you are to step back far enough to be able to, this is, this whole thing. It's a whole thing that's so huge that if you're close to it, you can't see it. It's like you can't really analyze yourself. You can think about yourself a lot, but you can't see yourself. You're inside looking out. So you don't know like how you strike other people except by way of how they respond to you.
Right.
You don't know how people see you except by how they treat you, And it's the same thing when you're like immersed over your head in whiteness or Europeanness or Westernness or whatever. You can't see it. It's not there.
It's like the whole Black Lives Matter / All Lives Matter thing. You're not saying that only Black Lives Matter. You're just shedding light on an issue that's a real issue, and it exists, but people think it's reverse racism or something, and so it's very confusing. It
is very confusing, and it doesn't help that there are people whose mission it is to keep it as confusing as possible.
Right. Well,
I mean, they drive political power by making sure that you don't ever really understand what's wrong with the way you're thinking, that you think it's right. And they go out of their way to do that. That's what the whole alternative facts thing is about. It's like
I'll paraphrase here. I don't recall the exact words, but it was something I read, and it said, if you make and this is the words that they use, if you make the lowest of the white men think that he's better than the highest of the color men, then they're gonna squabble and fight over the leftovers, while those in power and with money enjoy all the fruits.
Right.
And so there's something there to that.
There's definitely something there to that. So as an immigrant, do you feel this personally, or do you just see it as a big issue that you care about because you're part of it? Or do you, in day-to-day, like today, did anybody say anything or do anything or make you feel different or othered or not like you belong?
Not today, but there have been times when that has happened to me in the past. Sometimes in a more subtle way, other times more bluntly. But it does happen. The microaggressions happen a lot, and for a long time, I guess you don't know that it's happening, and then one day you realize it, and then after that, they become more obvious to you as they happen. It's kind of like this, awakening moment where you're like, oh, okay. That person said that because of some type of prejudice that they have, or some stereotype that they hold in. They maybe they're not doing it consciously, but they're doing it. I was with my son at a store, and we were waiting in line, and I was speaking in Spanish to him. And this gentleman turned around and said, "How long has he lived here?" And I looked at him. I was confused, and I was like, "What do you mean? How long has the little boy lived here?" I was like, "His whole life. He was born here." But because we were speaking Spanish, he assumed that he was a foreigner.
Right.
So he immediately put that label on him that if you speak a different language other than English, you're a foreigner.
Right.
He was just as American as you are, because he was born here too.
Right.
Thank God for the 14th Amendment.
Yeah. That may not be around for long if Trump has his way. But
another reason we should go out and protest and rally.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so like things like that happen, and I think about it. I'm like, well, so this guy immediately assumed that my son was a foreigner because he spoke a different language, and so I think it's something that he's going to encounter throughout his whole life. And
yeah, probably.
I think about that.
But since you came here as a sentient being, I mean, at 12,
Right.
you know what's going on.
Yeah.
When people treat you that way, do you take it personally, or have you always known, like, oh, they're doing this because
I think when I was younger, I would take it. In your youth, I took it more personally. There's one time when I was in high school, and this teacher told my friends, and I was with them, that we couldn't speak English in her classroom because this was America. And oh my gosh, I was so mad. Like, I was enraged, and she threatened to send me to the DR, and I was like, actually, I want to go to the DR because, and I brought that up to the dean. The DR is a dean's referral.
Oh yeah, okay.
Sorry, should explain the lexicon there.
I didn't
So she
know.
sent me to the dean's office, and I was very upset that she said that to me, and I took it personal. I think as I've, with the years, you kind of, like you said, you learn sometimes to differentiate and say, this is just because they're harboring some type of stereotype or some type of prejudice. It's not necessarily directed to me, but to everyone that maybe looks like me or that speaks like me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wondered because it took me a long time to figure it out, but that I grew up here and no one told me. I had to discover for myself why I was different and how I was.
Oh no, I knew it from the get-go.
So I wondered if it made a difference if you already knew. Okay, I know I'm different because I sound different and I look different and I have behaved slightly differently, so I know people are going to maybe keep me at arm's length or something. I just wondered how much of a difference
I haven't thought too much as to how I perceived it, but the way I reacted, it makes me.
So it made you mad.
Yeah, it makes me feel like I was taking it more personally. I haven't had that happen recently, but then again, my interactions with people have also changed. They're more limited. People at work or people, if we go to like one of our meetings, you tend to be around people who are supportive, so you don't really get that. But
do you travel around much?
You know what? Now that you say that, funny because we went to South Carolina over the summer,
okay.
And we got a lot of that. We would walk into this place like a restaurant, and like everyone would turn around and just look at us, and it was like weird face, like we were, I don't know, aliens coming down from a spaceship or something. And so they didn't say anything, but you could tell from their the way they looked at us that it was weird, uncomfortable. Or like when you're sitting in a restaurant and there are Confederate flags all around you, it makes you feel like a bit like I don't belong here. I maybe shouldn't be here.
Well, you're sort of like me in that I don't know that simply by looking at you I could place your ethnicity. Just just look at, I don't hear you, but I see you walking by. I know, like, I used to travel a lot, and every time I'd go into one of these like little, convenience store type places, and it seems like they're always run by somebody from some other country, and Armenians and people like from that area of the world would always focus on me, and they would think, oh, you look just like a cousin, you look just like. So they always thought I was sort of slightly Middle Eastern, sort of.
I get that too.
A little north of that, and no one ever could guess, So they'd ask my name, and they go, "Oh, you must be Italian, Garza, right? Because it's got a Z in there." And your name, Geovanny, that's not Geovanny. It's Italian. So I don't know that anyone could if they have a specific prejudice. I don't know that by looking at you, they're going to go, "Oh, he's one of those guys,"
Well, when I speak, though, I think that gives me away a little bit because of the accent.
I've watched enough.
Maybe I'm more self-conscious about my accent than it really is. I don't know.
You might be. I mean, it's an accent, but it's not. It's an ambiguous accent. Again, it's not specific.
Yeah.
It's not something. I mean, I've watched enough TV to know that when people are supposed to have an accent, they just invent this thing and they all sound the same. It's an accent. It's not. You can't tell where it's from.
People think a lot that I've been asked before whether if I'm from the Middle East. I get that a lot.
I think the beard is going to contribute. If you keep going with that.
Yes, I'm aware of that. My wife pointed it out.
Yeah, you might want to keep it trimmed.
But yeah, I get that in the Middle East a lot. Well, obviously, Costa Rica is such a small country that no one ever guesses that. I mean, if people sometimes ask me if I'm from Mexico or Puerto Rico, but that's because I think their interactions tend to be people from there.
Yeah.
But I do get Middle Eastern a lot.
Mm-hmm.
From people from the Middle East too. I've gotten that before, and it's very interesting.
I do, Azerbaijan and all sorts of this like sort of northern Middle East. It's interesting.
I was at the Champagne Republic Library once, and this gentleman who was from the Middle East, or at least he spoke Arabic, started speaking Arabic to me.
I've had that happen.
And I looked at him and I was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying.
What?
He really thought that I was, and he assumed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's when assuming gets you in trouble, you know.
Assuming does get you in trouble.
That happens to me, and sometimes I run into people that have a last name like Garza or Garcia or something.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot always assume that they speak Spanish just because they have a Latino last name. And sometimes not that they get offended, but they don't like it because you're making an assumption that, because your last name is Garza, you immediately speak Spanish.
I understand Spanish.
So you flip it.
I just can't speak.
If you flip it, we sometimes do that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with other people that you assume are either Latinos or speak Spanish, and so you base your interactions on those assumptions. It's happened to me before. I've learned to be more cautious now.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I try to be very careful about a lot of things because there are so many people that are in ambiguous situations that you just want to go, okay, I'm going to be careful here because I don't want to assume anything about you.
But that's a good thing. I think that we should all move towards not making these assumptions and not categorizing people and putting them in boxes and then interacting with them based on that, you know?
Yeah, but pattern recognition is one of those things that humans are really, really good at.
Oh, that's what made us thrive.
You know, that's kind of
you recognize which berries were the poisonous and which ones weren't.
Yeah, I mean, we're really good at that. So, you know, I've heard people say that like racism is innate, but racism isn't, but pattern recognition is. Mm-hmm. So recognizing that you don't look like me, you look like this kind of group, and I look like this kind of group, that's pattern recognition.
Right. Well, I mean, that's
ascribing race to it is
that's inherent. Yeah, racism was way beyond, way more than that. And I agree with you. I don't think it's something innate because I can see it with the way my son interacts with his classmates, and
sure,
the kids don't see that. I think makes you are taught that or you learn that from your environment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can obviously recognize and say, this person looks different. This person has different, hair, or they have different eyes, color of the eyes. But racism, it's way more than that. It's putting negative feelings associated with that and thinking that people are inferior or less because of those attributes. So,
yeah. Or I think that you're better,
right?
Because of them. Something. Boy, my headphones are falling apart. Sorry. I keep playing.
What time is it? I'm lost in time here.
It's we got about 10 minutes.
That. Time just flies when you're having fun.
Oh yeah, the show always goes by really quickly. So, was there any topic that you were hoping to have an opportunity to talk about? Because here's your chance.
I wasn't expecting that question there. Put me in the spot. No, I mean, there's so many things that I would want to talk about, but
you can always come back. I mean,
that's true. I plan to. I like this. This is my first time doing a radio show. Yeah? I like it.
Are you sitting there conscious of the fact that there are people that you can't see who are listening?
Yeah, to a certain extent. And I'm also sitting here thinking about how am I going to sound. I hate the way I sound when I'm recorded. Just not just in radio, but like in general. Like if I'm at an event or something and someone records me, and then I listen to myself. I'm like, oh, I don't like my own voice recorded. But I've noticed that a lot of people are in that same situation, so maybe it'd be a normal thing. I don't know.
I've heard a lot of people say that.
What about you? I mean, you're in radio all the time, so how do you feel?
I know exactly what my voice sounds like, so I'm used to it. It doesn't. When I hear myself, it doesn't seem weird to me at all. It's just like, oh, that's me, because for years, I've heard myself speak, so it doesn't bother me. But it used to. I used to hate my voice. Well, your voice inside, it sounds much deeper and richer than it does outside.
Of course.
So when you hear a recording, it's always, it sounds like
that's
that.
Me?
It's really weird.
That's not the way I sound. Not to myself, at least. Well, Yeah, I think not too conscious of the fact that there are people out there, strangers or God knows who, that is listening to me. But I'm obviously aware of that could be that is a possibility.
You're speaking more slowly than you usually do.
I do, and I try doing that whenever I am engaging in public speaking, whether it's at a rally or a presentation, or in this case now, because I know that I'm a fast speaker. I speak really fast, so sometimes I try to moderate myself and slow myself down.
It's good. I've had to learn that too, because I used to. Well, I've done the first radio thing that I used to do was there's a thing here in town called the Illinois Radio Reader, where you go in and you read news. Yes. And it's broadcast for people who are vision impaired, who so they can listen to the local news. So it's just whatever. And when I used to do that, I just like super fast. I don't know why. I think it's nerves or something.
That plays into it, yeah.
And over time, from hearing myself, I'm like, no, just slow down. Yeah. You can. It's easier to listen to. It's clearer. It's easier for people to understand what you're saying, and it gives you time to think about what you're saying, so you don't have to go, well, I didn't mean that. What I really meant to say was, and you have to back up all the time.
Yeah, public speaking does not make me nervous. I'm not nervous because I'm being heard by a lot of people. I think I've had some experience in that already. That doesn't really make me too nervous. But yeah, it's different when you're speaking out to the, and your words are, carried away by the wind. Mm-hmm. And now I'm being recorded, so everything I'm saying is going to be like in a permanent storage where anyone can hear it over and over.
That's true, yeah.
It's different. It's a little bit different.
It is different.
The context.
So I make a conscious effort to make these shows as much of a conversation as possible.
It feels like that.
Yeah. So it's not like, well, all right, we know what we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask you this, and what are you going to respond? So I know how to, I think a lot of radio is like that. A lot of interview shows are like that. But I try not to do that because I think it's more interesting to listen to just people talking.
No, I mean, I was listening to the radio, your show last week, and yeah, it was carried out like a conversation, and it was very interesting and engaging. I think too. Yes, I may be a little bit biased because I knew both people there, but I thought it was. I think the delivery method is good.
That's good, but to be fair and to be honest with the listener, it is a little like reality TV because we both are aware we're on the radio.
Yes.
We realize that people are listening to us talk, so we are
we're moderating ourselves and
there are things that I might say
our words.
or ways I would say that if we were alone in this room that are not the same as I do on the mic. So it can be misleading, but it was interesting. You mentioned last week after the show, I think Maria said something about it's so cool because you weren't interviewing me. And the thing is, well, no, I actually was.
Well, yeah.
I told her that was an interview. It's an interview style. I took that as a compliment.
But it's not the typical interview that you're used to, where someone fires questions at you. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's more amicable. More, we're just kind of talking.
So it was funny. It struck me in a funny way. I was like, no, that was an interview. That's what an interview is, or that's what it can be, or what I think it should be.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there, I guess.
Yeah, we digress. I guess
the audience doesn't care about
I've had a chance to think about something that I want to say.
Okay.
And I think the main thing that I would like people to take away is that, and I'm speaking and now I'm putting my immigrant hat on. Mm-hmm. I guess I've had it the whole time though. At the end of the day, this is an issue it's a human issue.
Yeah.
And so I think that a lot of times in the media and pundits and politicians, they try to dehumanize the immigrants, try to sometimes criminalize them.
Oh, yeah.
Or mischaracterize them as criminals or these dangerous foreigners that are coming to take our land, I don't know, or, destroy our way of life. And as an immigrant, I think that it's sometimes not my job, but I want people to know me and realize that, I'm just another human being, just like anyone else, with the same probably aspirations and goals. You know, we all want to, you know, we all come here for, I was a child, but, you know, my parents came here because they wanted a better life for their kids, and they wanted better opportunities. And I think that's the story of humanity. You know, we're always trying to be sure that our kids and that whoever comes after us has a better life and a better future. And so I think that's sometimes lost in the debate, in the dialogue, and immigrants are treated as just either statistics or numbers that get thrown out. 11 million sounds like such a just abstract, you know, it's like a mass of people, 11 million. In reference to undocumented or immigrants, or, you know, or they get dehumanized because whether they use racial slurs to refer to them, or things like, you know, they're criminals because they violated immigration law. When in reality, immigration law violations are treated as a civil matter, not even a criminal matter. So labeling them as criminals it's misleading.
Intentionally.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But so I think the one thing I like people to know is that it is a human issue that affects people, that affects human beings and their lives. And so people should probably think about that very carefully before they pass judgments and before they are quick to support X policies.
Yeah. And I suppose to a certain extent we play into that by saying, well, this show is about immigrants or about immigration. And so you take all these millions of people who all, the only thing they necessarily have in common is that they came here from somewhere else. They may have other things in common. They may not. They may have nothing else in common except the fact that they came to the United States from some other country.
And we do that with all groups.
Yeah.
Treat them as a monolithic, you know, group of people. But I think, now that you say that the recent election and what's been going on has taught us all, or most of us, that despite all these differences, we are all in the same boat. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, you know, there's a lot of people that come from all these different countries, different religions, different cultures. That the only thing they have in common is that they're immigrants. But I think people are starting to realize, well, that's enough of a reason so that we can, you know, stick together. And because at the end of the day, we're all being treated the same way.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
And then also realize that, once again, going back to the human issue, at the end of the day, we're all human beings that have a lot more things in common than we care to admit, probably.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of the basics of what we want and need are the same. Of course, you know, culture can play a huge role in channeling your basic desires or wants or needs in different directions. So you have people that are very strict and, you know, religious, and people are free and say, hey, man, whatever happens, you know. I mean, there can be all sorts of differences in how you express your humanity, but the humanity is the same.
Yeah, and we're all entitled to the same rights and to be treated with dignity. You know, I don't know if you've seen this, but there was we got a few minutes left. There was an experiment made
2 minutes
in Denmark.
Yeah,
and they had these people that they put in these different boxes, these different squares, you know, based on different characteristics, like if you're native-born Danish or if you're like an immigrant,